Fire her. Fire that black maid immediately, Mr. Davies hissed into his lapel mic, his eyes darting nervously toward the Japanese billionaire approaching the lobby. She can't be anywhere near this meeting. The gleaming marble floor of the Grand Astoria Hotel reflected the chandelier's crystal light as the hotel's general manager straightened his tie and plastered on his most welcoming smile. Mr. Soto, whose investment group controlled billions in hospitality assets, stepped through the grand entrance with his entourage of 6 impeccably dressed associates. "Welcome to the Grand Astoria," Davies extended his hand, but Soto immediately launched into rapid-fire Japanese, his tone clearly questioning. Davies's smile froze as panic flooded his system. He frantically fumbled for his smartphone translation app, tapping desperately as sweat beaded on his forehead. The robotic voice that emerged butchered the pronunciation so badly that Mr. Soto visibly winced. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Soto, but I'm afraid none of our staff speak Japanese," Davies admitted, watching his career crumble before his eyes. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The opulent lobby fell silent as Soto's entourage exchanged knowing glances. Soto's expression hardened, his fingers tightening around the leather briefcase rumored to contain contracts worth millions. Behind them, a black woman in a gray housekeeping uniform, the same maid Davies had just ordered removed, quietly pushed her cleaning cart past the tent scene. Her eyes briefly met the billionaire's before looking away, her face revealing nothing. No one noticed her presence as the drama unfolded. No one could see the Harvard diploma and Keio University master's degree hanging in her tiny apartment, and no one had any idea that in just a few hours, she would change everything. 3 hours earlier, the Grand Astoria Hotel had been a whirlwind of activity. The 5-star establishment, known for hosting dignitaries and celebrities, was preparing for perhaps its most important guest yet. Mr. Soto arrives at precisely 2 p.m., Davies announced during the emergency staff meeting, pacing the employee break room with military precision. His investment group controls over 30 luxury properties worldwide, and he's considering adding the Grand Astoria to his portfolio. He straightened his already impeccable tie. "This could mean international expansion for all of us," the department heads nodded eagerly. The head chef described the authentic Japanese kaiseki menu being prepared. The maintenance supervisor confirmed the presidential suite's temperature was set to exactly 22 degrees Celsius, Mr. Soto's preference according to his assistant's detailed instructions. The concierge had arranged VIP access to the city's most exclusive venues. "Remember," Davies's voice dropped an octave, his eyes scanning each face, "Mr. Soto's net worth exceeds the GDP of several small nations. One misstep, and we can kiss this opportunity goodbye." The front desk manager raised her hand tentatively. "Sir, I heard Mr. Soto prefers conducting business in Japanese. Should we arrange for a translator?" Davies waved dismissively. "His assistant assured me Mr. Soto speaks perfect English. Besides, we've updated our translation software on all hotel devices." He tapped his smartphone. Latest AI technology, practically human. As the meeting dispersed, Davies stopped the head of housekeeping. "Brenda, make sure your staff is invisible today. I want rooms maintained as if by magic. No guests should see your people working." Brenda nodded. "Of course, sir. They know the drill." Outside the meeting room, the hotel transformed. Fresh ikebana arrangements appeared in every corner. Staff practiced their most professional smiles. Security discreetly scanned the perimeter. The Grand Astoria wasn't just a hotel today, it was a stage, and every employee an actor with a precisely defined role in an elaborately choreographed performance. At the center of it all stood Davies, making minute adjustments to everything from the lobby's ambient music volume to the precise angle of the welcome banner. His 20-year rise from front desk clerk to general manager had been built on attention to such details. The Soto meeting wasn't just about the hotel's future, it was about his own. The regional director had hinted that successfully securing this deal could mean a promotion to the corporate office. Davies checked his watch. 1 hour until Soto arrived. He straightened a slightly crooked painting and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Everything was perfect. Everything was under control. In the East Wing's executive suite, Amora Jones methodically refreshed the room, her movements efficient and practiced. At 32, she'd been part of the housekeeping staff for nearly 4 years. Invisible labor in a visible world of luxury. She tucked fresh Egyptian cotton sheets with hospital corners, aligning the monogrammed pillowcases with mathematical precision. From her cart, she selected the specific aromatherapy diffuser requested for this room, hinoki wood essence, imported from Japan's Nagano prefecture. Proper diffusion requires placement away from direct sunlight, she murmured to herself in perfect Japanese, adjusting the device's position. Her fingers briefly brushed against a book in her work bag, dog-eared pages of advanced Japanese economic policy peeking out beside a well-worn Japanese-English dictionary. The walkie-talkie on her hip crackled. All housekeeping staff need to finish current rooms and remain in service areas, Brenda's voice instructed. VIP arrival in 50 minutes understood, Amora responded, quickening her pace. As she polished the bathroom fixtures, her reflection fragmented across the mosaic of mirrors. Bachelor's in International Relations, Master's in East Asian Studies, fluent in Japanese, proficient in Cantonese and Mandarin, all leading to pushing a housekeeping cart through America's luxury hotels. 4 years ago, she'd returned from studying abroad in Tokyo with dreams of working in international business. 300 rejection letters later, her student loans demanded payment. The Grand Astoria had been hiring. Temporary, she'd told herself. Yet here she remained. She'd watched countless business meetings from the periphery, silently correcting mistranslations in her head while emptying waste baskets. She'd overheard negotiations where millions changed hands while she earned minimum wage plus tips. The irony wasn't lost on her. In a globalized economy desperate for cultural bridges, her skills remained hidden behind a uniform that rendered her functionally invisible. As Amora finished the suite, she glanced at her watch, still time to review the Japanese economic journal she'd been reading during breaks. She pulled it from her bag as her phone buzzed with a notification from her student loan servicer, payment past due. She sighed, tucking the journal away. Another day, another room, another chance to practice skills no one knew she possessed. She pushed her cart into the hallway, nodding politely as executives rushed past without seeing her. Just another invisible person in a building full of very important ones. At exactly 2 p.m., a fleet of black Lexus sedans pulled up to the Grand Astoria's circular driveway. The doorman snapped to attention as the security team emerged first, scanning the entrance with practiced efficiency. Davy stood at the front, surrounded by his executive team, all wearing their most welcoming smiles. The hotel lobby had been cleared of other guests, a testament to the importance of this arrival. When Mr. Soto stepped from the second vehicle, the air seemed to electrify. Despite being in his 60s, he moved with the confidence of a much younger man. His charcoal suit was clearly bespoke, his dark blue tie a splash of calculated power against the monochrome palette. Behind him followed 6 associates, each carrying identical leather portfolios. "Welcome to the Grand Astoria Hotel, Mr. Soto," Davies stepped forward with an extended hand. "We are honored by your presence." Soto offered a curt nod and a brief handshake, then turning to his associates, he began speaking rapidly in Japanese. The musical tones of the language filled the lobby as his team nodded and responded in kind. Davies maintained his smile while panic flickered in his eyes. The conversation was clearly more extensive than simple pleasantries. He glanced at his smartphone, ready to deploy the translation app if necessary. One of Soto's associates, a younger woman with sharp eyes, noticed Davies's discomfort and spoke in accented English. "Mr. Soto is expressing his initial impressions of your establishment. He appreciates the architecture." "Wonderful," Davies brightened. "Please let him know we've prepared the presidential suite according to his preferences, and our chef has created a special menu incorporating authentic Japanese cuisine." As the entourage moved toward the elevators, staff members appeared from seemingly nowhere to handle the luggage. In the background, Amora pushed her cart along the perimeter of the lobby, keeping to the shadows as instructed. Her eyes followed the group, her ears picking up every word of the Japanese conversation, including Mr. Soto's actual comment, "The decor is acceptable, but I'm concerned about their understanding of our needs." An hour later, Davies led Mr. Soto and his team on a tour of the hotel's premium facilities. They moved through the spa with its imported Japanese soaking tubs, past the Michelin-starred restaurant where the chef presented sample appetizers, and into the grand ballroom where Davies enthusiastically described how it could be transformed for international conferences. Throughout the tour, Soto spoke primarily to his team in Japanese. His associate, introduced as Ms. Mori, provided occasional translations, but Davies sensed he was missing critical information. Soto's expressions remained unreadable, his questions filtered through layers of translation that seemed to dilute their meaning. As they entered the hotel's executive conference room for the formal presentation, Davies felt sweat beading at his collar. The stakes were too high for miscommunication. Our presentation today outlines the investment opportunity, Davies began as his team distributed leather-bound portfolios. We've included market analysis, revenue projections, and proposed expansion plans, Ms. Mori translated, but Soto's attention had already shifted. He was asking something to his associates, gesturing toward the windows overlooking the city skyline. Mr. Soto is inquiring about the local business district, Ms. Mori explained. Specifically, he wants to know about zoning regulations affecting hotel properties and how they compare to regulations in Tokyo. Davies blinked, unprepared for such a specific question. Well, that's an excellent question. Perhaps I could have our legal team prepare a detailed response. Soto interrupted with a longer question, his tone more insistent. Ms. Mori hesitated. His asking about recent changes to foreign investment tax structures in this region, particularly how they affect hospitality holdings integrated with retail developments. The room temperature seemed to rise 10 degrees. Davies's carefully planned presentation was derailing into territory he hadn't prepared for. He reached for his smartphone. Let me make sure I understand the question correctly, he said, opening his translation app and speaking into it. Could Mr. Soto repeat his concerns about tax structures? Soto spoke directly into the phone. The app processed for a moment, then produced a bizarre phrase in robotic English. Your question about the Honorable Warrior's money is very delicious. The absurdity of the translation hung in the air. One of Soto's associates stifled a laugh. Soto's expression darkened. Davies tried again, speaking more slowly into the device. This time the translation came back as, foreign samurai tree law change question important now. Soto set down his portfolio and said something sharp to Ms. Mori. She looked uncomfortable as she translated. Mr. Soto wonders if you're properly prepared for this meeting. He says these are basic questions any hotel seeking international investment should anticipate. The presentation hadn't even properly begun, and already Davies could feel the opportunity slipping away. He glanced desperately at his executive team, who looked back with equal helplessness. In the hallway outside, Amora moved silently with her cleaning cart, catching fragments of the conversation through the partially open door. She winced at both the mangled translations and the increasing tension in the room. Davies's heart hammered against his ribs as he fought to maintain his professional composure. 20 years of career building, hundreds of successful negotiations, and countless high-profile clients, none of it had prepared him for this unraveling moment. Perhaps we should take a brief recess, he suggested, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. I can have our financial team join us to address these specific questions. As Ms. Mori translated, Soto checked his platinum watch and exchanged a glance with his associates. The silent communication was clear, their time was valuable, and it was being wasted. In that moment, Davies's career flashed before his eyes. Not just the prestigious Grand Astoria position, but the promised corporate promotion that would finally validate decades of sacrifices. The missed birthdays, the dissolved marriage, the postponed dreams, all justified by the steady climb up the hospitality ladder that now seemed to be collapsing beneath him. Mr. Soto, Davies said, summoning his most authoritative voice, I assure you, we value your time and investment consideration. If you'll allow me just 5 minutes to gather our specialists, we can address every question with the precision it deserves. Soto responded with a curt nod and a brief comment in Japanese. Ms. Mori translated, Mr. Soto says you have 5 minutes, but he is beginning to question whether the Grand Astoria has the international sophistication his organization requires. Davies nodded gratefully and backed out of the room, his confident smile dropping the instant the door closed behind him. I don't care what you're doing. Drop everything and get to the executive conference room, Davies hissed into his phone as he paced the hallway, and bring anyone who speaks a word of Japanese. The hotel's financial controller appeared first, breathless from running up 3 flights of stairs. Soto is asking about foreign investment tax structures and zoning regulations, Davies explained rapidly. Can you address that? The controller paled. I can cover the basic tax implications, but the international aspects, that's beyond my expertise. Davies' personal assistant arrived next. I've called the language service we use for the tour groups, she reported. They're checking if they have a Japanese translator available. How long? 30 minutes minimum. We don't have 30 minutes. Davies struggled to keep his voice down. We have 3 minutes before I have to go back in there. The head of security mentioned his cousin took Japanese in college, though he lived 2 states away. Each suggestion hit the wall of impracticality as the minutes ticked by. Davies' assistant returned, phone in hand. The language service says their only Japanese speaker called in sick. Through the cracked door, Davies could see Soto checking his watch again. The IT manager joined the growing cluster of executives. The translation app is failing because it's programmed for conversational Japanese, not business and legal terminology, he explained. Harrison checked his watch. 4 minutes had passed. His 5-minute reprieve was over. Very well, he straightened his tie. I'll go back in and apologize for our unpreparedness. I'll request to reschedule. Even as he said it, Davies knew that rescheduling was tantamount to failure. He pushed the door open, his career hanging by a thread. Mr. Soto, I must apologize for the delay, Davies began. As Ms. Mori translated, Soto's expression shifted from disappointment to decision. He conferred quietly with his associates. Ms. Mori hesitated before translating. Mr. Soto has appointments with 2 other hotel groups during his visit. He says perhaps it would be more efficient to focus on those meetings instead. The words were a death sentence. Soto was preparing to walk away. Please assure Mr. Soto that we value his time immensely, Davies pleaded. Soto held up his hand, silencing him. He spoke directly to Ms. Mori, no longer bothering to include Davies in his gaze. Ms. Mori's professional mask slipped slightly. Mr. Soto is considering whether continuing this meeting is worthwhile. He suggests that a hotel unable to communicate effectively with international clients may not be prepared to serve an international clientele. Soto turned to an associate, who began typing on his phone. Alternative arrangements were being made. Throughout the unfolding disaster, Amora had remained in the hallway, ostensibly dusting the decorative moldings. For years of housekeeping had perfected her ability to become part of the background. But she heard every word exchanged in both languages. She understood Soto's frustration about specific regulatory changes. She recognized his references to municipal zoning ordinances. Most importantly, she caught the subtle implication that this wasn't merely about translation, it was a test of the Grand Astoria's global business acumen. As she wiped the same section of wall for the 3rd time, Amora felt the familiar weight of decision. The memory of her previous hotel job still stung. After helping Japanese guests, she'd been reprimanded for overstepping. Stay in your lane, the manager had advised. Guests get uncomfortable when service staff act too educated. Now, watching the Soto meeting disintegrate, she felt conflicting impulses collide. Professional self-preservation urged caution. Yet something deeper pulled against it, pride in her abilities, frustration at their continued waste, and a sudden, crystal-clear vision of Soto walking away, taking with him not just Davies' opportunity, but hers as well. If the hotel secured Soto's investment, expansion would follow. New positions would open. Her moment of decision had arrived. Amora removed her cleaning gloves and tucked them into her apron. She smoothed back a strand of hair and straightened her shoulders. For years of invisibility were about to end. Inside the conference room, Soto was already gathering his materials. Excuse me, Amora's voice cut through the tension as she stepped into the doorway. Every head turned. Davies recovered first. Not now, he said sharply. We're in the middle of an important meeting. Amora ignored him, focusing instead on Soto. She took a deep breath and spoke in perfect, academically precise Japanese. Respected Mr. Soto, I couldn't help but overhear your questions about the recent amendments to foreign investment regulations. Perhaps I might offer some assistance with translation. The room froze. Soto's eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. Ms. Mori's mouth opened slightly. Davies stared at Amora as if she'd materialized from another dimension. "What are you doing?" he stammered. Soto recovered quickly, studying Amora with new interest. He responded in rapid Japanese, deliberately using complex financial terminology, testing her. "Your Japanese is exceptional," he said. "Perhaps you can explain how the city's new vertical zoning allowances might affect a mixed-use development incorporating both hotel and retail spaces." Without hesitation, Amora responded with a detailed explanation of the recent zoning changes, citing the specific municipal codes and comparing them to similar regulations in major Japanese cities. As she spoke, the atmosphere in the room transformed. Soto's associates straightened in their chairs, taking notes. Davies's shock gave way to the dawning realization of unexpected salvation. "If you don't mind my asking," Soto said, gesturing to Amora's housekeeping uniform, "how does someone with your linguistic abilities and knowledge of international business regulations come to be working in this capacity?" Before Amora could answer, Davies stepped forward, his composure partially recovered. "I believe we should continue this conversation properly," he said, pulling out a chair at the conference table. "Please join us." "I'm sorry, your name is?" "Amora," she said simply. "Amora Jones." "Ms. Jones will assist with translation while we locate our professional interpreter," Davies explained, his tone suggesting this was a temporary measure. Leaning close to Amora, he whispered urgently, "What department are you with exactly?" "Housekeeping, sir," Amora replied. Davies's smile faltered. "And you speak Japanese?" "How exactly?" "I studied at Keio University," Amora said. "I have a master's in East Asian Studies and International Business Relations." The information hit Davies like a physical blow. "And you didn't think to mention this during the hiring process?" "It was on my resume," Amora replied simply. Page 2, under educational background. Before Davies could respond, Soto addressed Amora directly in Japanese, asking about her thoughts on the hotel's positioning for Asian tourism markets. As Amora began to answer, Davies interrupted. "Perhaps we should stay focused on the investment presentation. Ms. Jones can translate my points." The underlying message was unmistakable: "Return to your proper place." Olivia hesitated, caught between her momentary visibility and the habit of professional acquiescence. The conference room had become a battlefield of unspoken power dynamics. This moment would determine whether she stepped back into invisibility or finally claimed the professional recognition she'd spent years preparing for. She turned to Davies, speaking in English so everyone would understand. "Mr. Davies, Mr. Soto is specifically interested in how the Grand Astoria plans to adapt to Japanese business travelers' expectations. He's concerned that the presentation materials reflect Western assumptions about luxury accommodations rather than Japanese preferences for omotenashi, or wholehearted hospitality." Davies's expression tightened. "And how exactly would you know what's in our presentation materials, Ms. Jones?" The question hung in the air, pointed, accusatory. Amora straightened in her chair. "I wouldn't, but I do know that Mr. Soto just expressed that concern to his associates." She switched to Japanese, addressing Soto directly, formally introducing herself and her qualifications. Soto studied Amora for a long moment. "A person with your qualifications working in housekeeping. This is most unusual. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," Amora replied with dignity. "But perhaps today that unusual path might benefit everyone in this room." Soto nodded slowly, then turned to Davies. "With Ms. Mori now translating," he said, "I would like Ms. Jones to participate in this meeting, not merely as a translator, but as someone who understands both our cultures. If she has insights into how your hotel might better serve Japanese clients, I wish to hear them." It wasn't a request. It was a directive. Davies's knuckles whitened around the presentation remote as he forced a smile. "Of course, Mr. Soto. We're all about discovering hidden talent." If I may, Amora interjected in Japanese, addressing Soto directly. I believe your primary concern was about recent regulatory changes. The city has indeed implemented changes that actually favor international investors. The most significant is the tax abatement program for properties incorporating cultural exchange elements, something that would align perfectly with your portfolio's emphasis on cross-cultural hospitality. As she spoke, Soto's associates took detailed notes. She seamlessly shifted to addressing vertical zoning allowances, drawing parallels to regulations in Tokyo and Osaka. For the first time, Soto smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his stern countenance. You understand our perspective, he said to Amora. This is refreshing. The conversation evolved beyond mere translation into a sophisticated exploration of cross-market hospitality investment. Amora wasn't just conveying words, she was bridging business cultures. The hotel lacks dedicated tea service areas and has limited multi-generational accommodation options, which are critical for Japanese family travelers, she explained, translating for Davies' benefit. Additionally, the current digital payment systems don't integrate with platforms like Line Pay, which Japanese business travelers expect. Davies blinked, taken aback by the precision of her analysis. Between discussions, Soto asked about her background. When she mentioned her professor at Keio University was a Dr. Ishikawa, Soto's eyebrows rose. Dr. Ishikawa is my brother-in-law, a brilliant economist. This unexpected connection shifted the atmosphere further. When Soto mentioned a particular challenge his other properties faced, Amora suggested an innovative structural approach that would satisfy both American and Japanese requirements. The solution was so practical that Soto had an associate make detailed notes. This is precisely the kind of creative problem-solving that successful international ventures require, Soto remarked. Where did the Grand Astoria find you? Before Amora could answer, Davies interjected, Ms. Jones is a recent addition to our international relations team. The lie hung awkwardly in the air. After nearly an hour, Soto turned to Davies. Your hotel has impressive potential. Ms. Jones has highlighted compatibility factors I hadn't previously considered. He then asked, may I ask, what is Ms. Jones's official position here? The question landed like a stone. Ms. Jones currently works in our housekeeping department, Davies admitted. Soto's expression registered genuine shock. He turned to Amora and switched to Japanese. You maintain rooms with these credentials? Yes, she replied. It's honest work while I continue seeking opportunities better aligned with my education. Soto shook his head in disbelief. Mr. Davies, I find it concerning that your organization has someone of Ms. Jones's caliber cleaning rooms rather than contributing to your international business strategy. The criticism was delivered with calm precision. There has clearly been a misunderstanding of Ms. Jones's qualifications, Davies said, his voice strained. Ms. Jones, he said, turning to Amora with genuine contrition, it appears we owe you an apology and perhaps a conversation about your future with the Grand Astoria. As the meeting concluded, Soto extended his hand to Amora. I have been impressed not only by your language skills, but by your understanding of cross-cultural business dynamics. He withdrew a distinctive black business card with gold embossing that he presented with both hands in the traditional Japanese manner. My private contact information, he explained. Should you be interested in exploring opportunities with Soto International, I would personally review your application. Davies, watching the exchange, stepped forward. Ms. Jones, we should discuss your role at the Grand Astoria immediately. Soto nodded approvingly. I will be recommending the Grand Astoria to my associates, he announced. But I would suggest a serious review of your talent management practices. In today's global economy, overlooking capabilities like Ms. Jones is not merely an oversight. It's a competitive disadvantage. 1 month later, Amora stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor. Her grey housekeeping uniform had been replaced by a tailored charcoal suit. The employee badge hanging from her lapel now read, Director of International Guest Relations, a position created specifically for her. On her desk sat 2 framed items, her master's degree from Keio University and a letter of intent from Soto International, confirming the Grand Astoria as their newest portfolio property. Davies had offered the position the same day as the Soto meeting, along with a salary that finally allowed her to move her student loan status from delinquent to manageable. Her invisibility had ended. Her real work had begun. In the hotel's main conference room, Amora stood before 30 staff members from various departments. "Welcome to the first session of the Grand Astoria's Hidden Talents Initiative," she began. On the screen behind her, a simple mission statement appeared, recognizing the whole person behind every position. "1 month ago, I was pushing a housekeeping cart outside this very room," she continued. "Today, I'm helping restructure our guest services to better serve international clients. This transformation wasn't because I suddenly gained new abilities. It was because circumstances finally made my existing abilities visible." She clicked to the next slide, showing statistics from their staff survey. 40% spoke at least one language besides English, 65% held degrees or certifications unrelated to their current positions. Davies, standing at the back of the room, nodded approvingly. The evening sun cast long shadows across the lobby as Amora completed her final task of the day, welcoming a delegation from Osaka. Her Japanese flowed effortlessly as she explained the hotel's new amenities, including their Japanese tea service and line pay integration. As the guests proceeded to the elevator, she noticed a young man in a maintenance uniform carefully adjusting a lighting fixture. She had seen him at the Hidden Talent session earlier, an engineering student working part-time. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of recognition between two people who understood what it meant to be more than their uniforms suggested. The true value of a person, like a precious stone, isn't diminished by being temporarily overlooked. Its worth remains intact, waiting for the moment when the right eyes finally see its brilliance. In your workplace, your community, perhaps even in your home, who might be invisible right now? What extraordinary talents lie hidden behind ordinary titles? And what might happen if you were the one to finally see them?